And Jay know my eyebrow. He know we've been having these conversations for about 10 years
Hey,
now.
look. So look, I had to go live because it was telling me I had a few seconds before it was going to kick us off. I mean, it wouldn't kick us off, but I wanted to be live. And my homegirl niece just joined. Hey, niece. We were just doing kind of a round table of everybody here. Niece, Courtney, niece. This is Courtney, niece. Just
Hi, nice to meet you.
One big family. All right, cool. Since we live, we just gonna go right in. Damn, I didn't look at the ticker and realize that we had to go live. We sitting in the back room, just having a good time. Hey, y'all who are just joining us. Some of you for the first time. Others you have been following this series. This is episode or part 3, this series. And let me take that question off. I got the question on there. This series is the unspoken truths on why you are single from a man's perspective. And for the last 6 months, these gentlemen, we've just been on here just diving into all kind of relationship questions, discussions, topics, you name it. We've talked about it. The only thing we haven't gotten into some of the racy stuff that Fred wants to talk about, like, open relationships and threesomes and stuff. We ain't talked about that stuff yet. but
where's the tape? I need to know about the tape.
But I'm sure at some point we'll get into some of that stuff. But tonight we're doing part 3 of the unspoken truths on why you're single. We have 3 beautiful ladies on tonight who want to talk with us, really kind of just give us some perspective as men around sex and singleness. So in part 2 last week, when we were going over all the statistics from the Pew Research study that discussed why there were so many single women who were desirous of relationships, some of the themes that came out of it, and gentlemen, remind me if I missed a few, were that there were just more women on the planet than there are men. I think that we came to that resolve last week. And then if you're a Black woman looking to date in the Black community, the number of eligible men is very small compared to other races. And then if you look at things like education, you look at things like gainfully employed, and I just say no drama. You can define that how you want, right? It's really hard, I think, in our community to find eligible men. And so some of the questions that I want the women to answer tonight kind of just deal with some of these statistics that we found online. So let me go ahead and pull. Hey, yo, I came prepared tonight. I got a little PowerPoint, and everything. I'm pulling my like scholar hat out tonight. I came prepared. All right, let's see. And ladies, if you're on Facebook, and just go ahead and share. You can share the broadcast on your page if you wouldn't mind. We want to try to make sure that we get as many folks to watch as possible. Why is it not showing my? Why is it not showing my window? I'm gonna have to come back. Yeah, I had it up earlier. I'm trying to figure out why it's not showing. Let's see if I'm gonna try a different way. Screen window. Okay, here it is. Cool. Bang. Can y'all see this? I'm gonna make it big.
It looks like it's coming up.
Yeah, make it big though. All right, cool. Can y'all see that? All right, cool. So look, this is kind of how we started off a couple of weeks ago. Courtney, niece, and Candace. We were really just talking about like those who are single in the United States. Who's that demographic, right? You hear all these people talk about it's hard to find a good partner, but like who are we really talking about? So this Pew Research study suggested that notice these numbers. Many of the people who are talking about I'm single and it's hard for me to find someone in a relationship. Look at the adults of the races. What race stands out to you?
It's definitely us.
Yeah.
It's the Black community. Almost 50% of adults of all races in the Black community have shared that they're single, right? Then it's got the whole breakdown of the age. Now, this was interesting to me. I thought there would be more in the single category between 30 and 50, but it seems like those numbers are actually higher at 18 to 29. And the research also suggests that in that age gap, a lot of women are thinking about, I want a career. I'm not thinking about being settled down. And I have a few other aspirations that they're chasing after, which is definitely understandable and certainly different than maybe 10 or 20 years ago. Among men, the number, again, is that large number, 18 to 29, and then the number gets smaller and smaller as the age increases. One thing I did thought was interesting, and I just want the ladies just to comment on any and all of these statistics. Tell me what jumps out and why you think that number or that statistic exists. Amongst educated, notice those who have high school or less education find themselves more. And I actually thought it was going to be the opposite. So it was interesting to see this study. Those who have a bachelor's plus degree, whether it's a master's or a doctorate or MD, tend to find relationships more than those without. So, Niece, Court, Candace, which one of these, if any of these statistics, strike you as, wow, I never thought about that? And then also give some rhyme or reason why you think that number or that statistic exists.
The one for me that jumps out is the education, as far as the ones who have a degree, high school or below, it's hard for them. Whereas I find people who do have degrees, it's harder for us because most times I found that the ones who have degrees already have partners. That really surprised me.
Okay, education piece.
Yeah. I think another thing that I'm learning more recently is that a lot of the college age, up to maybe like mid to late 20s, they're not looking for stable relationships. That was different for us when we were, and I'm aging myself here, and I'm not going to say how old I am, but when we were in college, that's when weddings were being planned, all these things. So that is different now. They aren't looking for, but I recently just found that out. I didn't know that. And it's really it's the women. They're like, no, I'm good. I'm dating, I'm hanging out, I'm having a good time, and I'm doing me. So that's one thing I find interesting. So, and that's amongst
why do you think that is
educated?
Why do you, to your point, why do you think that is amongst women, who are a little younger, 18 to 29, who are not looking to date or to be in a serious relationship? Why that might be different than when the days we were in college?
I think it's probably what they see from parents, older individuals, things like that. A lot of broken marriages, people who did get married in their 20s who are not married anymore, and those are probably some of their parents, or aunts, uncles, etc. Whereas we saw families, our parents were married, and even if it wasn't a good relationship, they stayed married. So it was a different perspective, and what we saw, our examples were different. And I'm not against these young ladies doing what they, enjoy your life. You know what I'm saying? Because what I am seeing is that a lot of people, even in my friends, those who are no longer married, they like, I wouldn't tell anybody to get married before they're 35. So it's not a bad thing that they're waiting.
Okay.
And also to comment on that, I feel as though, because my daughter, she is 22, and I've always told her, focus on your career, and you are going to school, your career, traveling, living life before taking that step. Because for me, I was married when I was her age, and now I'm not divorced. So I see the importance in, finding yourself and finding what you want out of life and in a partner before you jump into anything long term. And I feel like a lot of these women, they're more so focused on their careers, because some of the men out here, they don't have it to provide for us. So we have to go out and get it on our own. So I feel like that's why a lot of them are focused on themselves and are waiting until they are ready for a relationship.
Yeah. Hold on, Fred. I want Nisi. I want all the ladies to at least chime in one time before we share some commentary. Nisi, your thoughts. You and I went to college together. And certainly some of these statistics don't surprise the two of us. But tell me your thoughts.
Well, Jay, okay, so I have a daughter. She's 9. I'm not married. I've never been married. Not to say I don't have a desire to be married, but I kind of feel like the opinion of the other ladies, like as women tend to acquire things for ourselves, like I'm a homeowner, my house is in my name, and I'm just that kind of woman. I'm a go-getter, and I'm not gonna wait for anyone to kind of approach me or provide for me. So sometimes that's a pro and a con, because it's like that can work for you or it can work against you. So I think it just takes men of a certain mental maturity to deal with a woman of that type of position. But at the same time, and I say this personally as well, being a woman who is kind of went out and kind of accumulated things for yourself, you have to learn how to let somebody come in and lead or share. And that's hard sometimes because you're like, no, I've been doing it on my own for so long. I'm good. So I think it's just because women, we just kind of started kicking in and doing it for ourselves, and that's certainly how I'm raising my daughter. And trust me, she has that spunk and that fire. But at the same time, I want her to remain, open to being in a relationship. I don't want her to just be like, I don't need a man, and no, we need men. We need men, but we just have to learn how to kind of scale it back a little, and allow someone to come in and take that role for us.
Yeah. I like that commentary. The need is there, but I think the focus is on self, and I don't think that either you feel that that's an issue. And Nisha, you talking about raising your daughter, to focus on self and to go after her dreams. And I think Courtney made a comment earlier. It's interesting because what we saw growing up a lot of times with our parents was, you got to get in a relationship. You know what I mean? And that a relationship will make you sustainable. You're not sustainable without one. And I think we've seen that we can do the opposite. We can be single and homeowners and gainfully employed and travel the world and not have to be in a relationship more or less, right?
That's so true. It's funny too. I remember because out of my core group of friends, most of them got married within probably a year or two after we got out of college. And I remember an older family member of mine making a comment saying, this is interesting. All your friends are married. What's going on with you? And I was like, nothing's going on with me. I was like, the right person just hasn't come along right yet. And he was like, well, don't you want? And I said, but I haven't missed a beat. We all bought new cars the same year. We all bought our homes the same year. I was just doing it myself, which I could appreciate because I have seen so many examples of women before us that were dependent, like you said, on they had to be in that relationship. They wouldn't be able to sustain. So for me to be able to accumulate home ownership at 25 years old and got a career going and be able to do all these things myself, my motto in life, and it still is true, is that I need to be okay with it without you. Now, if you come along and you can add to it, absolutely amazing. But I don't ever want to be caught in a position where you're gone and now I have nothing. So could have worked for or against me, I'm not sure, but I'm okay with that either way.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate the conversation. I don't think that we do this enough, just as men and women talk about these type of ideals. Fred, go ahead and comment. You were wanting to say something.
Oh, at the time I had my thought, we were talking about the number of people 18 to 29 who were not espoused. And I think some of the numbers kind of alluded to the previous show where we talked about sort of the scarcity of available men. When you look at that 18 to 29 age group, I think it's something like statistically about a third of Black males are incarcerated in that age group. So that really does make it difficult for women around that age to, find a suitable bachelor. And I also wonder, I think that number, the number that was on the screen, Jay, was something like 51% or 41%, but I think that included all men. And I would be curious to know what that number was simply among Black men who were single. It might be even higher because a large majority of them, possibly at least a third of them, are locked up. So that makes it harder for women to find somebody to settle down with. And I can understand waiting when you're that young. There's absolutely no reason to rush into something when you're that young. You're 18, 19, 20, 21, and statistically, people are getting married at much later ages now.
Much later. Yeah, much later.
It's something to add to what he just said. I think that we were looking for something different. Because when you bring education levels into it, when we were in college, we were looking for someone that was equally yoked, right? We wanted a professional. We wanted someone that was seeking a career, et cetera, et cetera. As we get older, we realize that there are other options. There are people out here that have no college degree and they are millionaires, So I think when you're 18 to 29, you're ingrained to, well, I have this, so he needs to bring this to the table, or she needs to bring this to the table as well, where that expands as you get older. And you have different opportunities that you wouldn't have considered when you were younger.
Yeah, good point. I want to kind of ease us into this. We about to really get in it, but I want to ease y'all into it. Corey, you had this conversation online. I want to ease y'all into this. It's the topic of the conversation tonight, and so I want to share just another statistic that we discussed last week. Let me pull up, make it bigger. Just that women in this study said it's hard to find someone who's looking for the same kind of relationship and meets their standards. Here's the number. Hard to find someone who meets their expectations. Largely 56% of women are saying that about men that they're dating or looking for. Hard to find someone looking for the same type of relationship as them. The number increases to 65%. And then these are some smaller numbers, limited number of people in your area. People aren't interested in dating, too busy, hard for them to approach people. So Nice, and then Candace, and then Courtney, I want you all to share, what are your initial thoughts when you look at the two high numbers? It's hard to find someone who meets their expectations. Talk about your friend circle of women. And then hard to find someone looking for the same type of relationship as your friend circle.
Okay, so wow. Jason, he's talking about he's gonna ease us
I'm trying to ease y'all in.
We haven't even started about section. What are you talking about?
Here. We can stay right here for weeks, like literally. Jesus. Okay, let's talk about expectations. Ooh, okay, so they kind of diminish sometimes over the years, but you have to be careful that you're not settling, because I think sometimes when you're young and you the little hottie and your body all tight and you everything and this and that, and you pumping, you bad, you know what I mean? You can flick them off, you like pow pow. I'm the it girl. And then you get a little older, a little bit. So you're like, okay, let me bring it on down a little. I was expecting, somebody with an S550. Now he can have a Dodge Durango. You gotta work with what's out there. So, I think sometimes we as women, because we catapult ourselves through education, we're in the gym, so we're like, oh, he's got to be here because I'm here. But just as Courtney said, we realize that there are people of all types of career paths out here who are really making, names for themselves, and they've done well. And I think sometimes we say expectations, we're looking, what we mean is, can you provide for me? You know, are you able to kind of be in my financial bracket? You know, and I don't think that that's a bad thing, because people want what they want. You know, if somebody wants $1 million house, I can't look at them and discredit them. That's what they want. And they want somebody who can meet them at that $1 million house level. So, hey, go for it. You know, some people just want a 2-bedroom condo. They just need a 2-bedroom condo, dude. You know, so it's like whatever, you know, your expectation is. But now when we get to the second point, Jay, and we're talking about the same type of relationship, that's the pinnacle. That is the bubble right there. Because a lot of times women, you know, and I think it's just honestly by nature. I ask myself this a lot. I ask myself, are men genetically fused to be monogamous? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Y'all need a daily injection of holy waters. I don't know.
That's a different show.
It takes y'all years to get to that point where you're like, all right, look, I'm ready to try this monogamy thing. And we've been there. We've been there since probably about age 27, 28, maybe 30. Yeah. Y'all still dibbling and dabbling. So that is a critical area where it's like, just not finding that compatible person who's like, he's ready to, you know, kind of give up his, you know, black book per se, and we gonna do the daggone thing. I had a friend years ago. He told me, he said, men are really not ready to settle down till they're about 40. And I was like, 40? Jesus. I kind of think that's true, to be honest. And I know there are some good men out there who have done it under that threshold, but I think it's 40. I think it's 40.
I don't see a problem with that.
With what part?
Yeah.
About them being 40 to settle down.
Well, I mean, maybe from your perspective, because you've been married already and you needed like a buffer. For people who've not been married, you're like, that's ridiculous.
Wait, I want to hear what Candy had to say. What? Go ahead, Candy. You don't see a problem with that?
With that, for me, again, you know, being married at a young age, I feel as though people need to really take time to find themselves, because when you join so early, now you have to learn this other person and you're forgetting about yourself. So you need to go through certain experiences in your life before making that leap. I would have waited until I was older before getting married, because back at that age, I didn't know what I wanted. Then I had this husband. I had to focus on him and his needs and wants. Then I had my daughter, had to focus on that. So I got pushed all the way to the back burner. And then here it is, years later, I'm now getting in the groove of, okay, you know, this is what I want. It happens with some people earlier where they know what they want at a young age, but for most people, we won't find ourselves until a certain age. So I feel as though we need to find ourselves first before making that leap. Like I tell my, other friends all the time, take this time to really know who you are, know what you want, because when you jump into things and don't know, this recipe for disaster for me.
See, Jay, this is a good segue into the sex part.
That's what he want to know.
So, because the question was, how does that fit into all of this conniving and figuring and all that stuff?
And there's so many options.
Yeah. So Court, we do that one real quick. I mean, I think what Denise opened up with and what Candace shared was about this finding yourself. Men might not get to a certain age until they're really ready, where the expectations meet. Have you found that in your circle, Court, where expectations amongst men and women are usually met early on, or it just seems to be very imbalanced over the years until there's maybe this magic number where it's like, oh, okay, cool, I'm ready for the same thing you're ready for?
I've seen examples of both. I definitely feel like, as I stated a little bit earlier, some of my friends that have been married, their perspective is just wait till you're older, because we change so much in our 20s, and even our 30s. So 40 is probably a good sweet spot, but that's where the issue comes in, because if you're talking about family and children and all these kind of things, well, some of that becomes harder to do right after 35 and up, and 40s and things like that. And then you have a lot of women, as Nisi, right? As Nisi indicated, you have a lot of women who were ready in their 20s, because that's what's in us, and then they meet guys, or they go through, or these men through 25 to 40, and now they're burnt out. So they get to 40, and the men like, okay, I'm ready. And we like, well, So I mean, so it can go both ways. I've definitely seen both. I've experienced both throughout my friend circle. But I can see the way now in my hindsight, because I had a plan. I was going to be married at 25. I was going to have my first child at 27, my second child at 29. I was going to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
So that did not happen. And for a long time, that was hard for me, because I was like, what is the problem? And all my friends were married. But in hindsight, I can honestly say I'm appreciative that it did not happen in the time frame in which I thought it should have, because I've learned so much from, unfortunately, what they had to go through. So
Right.
I think 40 is a sweet spot.
Hey, Eric, the relationship whisperer. I like that. Hey, go ahead and comment, bro, before I go ahead and draw on these questions about sex.
So the whole time I was thinking, I think I always want to share like a tool, I think, for our audience, right? And I think we're all right, but I think what it is most of the time when we are in relationships, either expectations are unspoken, too low, or they're just expected. Like we expect us to know, like telepathically, to get it. And I think one of the hardest parts are seeing it demonstrated, how to communicate about those expectations. So if people really want to have a healthier relationship, really it's about discussing, what do you want out of this? And I have found the more, and it's funny, man, Jay, I was just talking to a dude this morning. He was talking about like having somebody in his life that there was no responsibilities with them. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, it's a sexual relationship. I said, well, tell me about that. He's like, well, I verbatim said, here it was, like, here's what I can offer you.
Right.
And that's all I can offer you. But I will be respectful about what I offer you, and I think you'll enjoy it. That was it. But I think that people are afraid to do the exact same thing in intimate relationships about the expectation about I want you to be my friend. Mm-hmm. I want you to be my lover. I want all these things to happen. And I think that's the part right there. Once you make that first step into communicating about it, I think it becomes really easy. But if you haven't seen it happen, I mean, I'm a little older, so I saw the nuclear family change. And Courtney, I think you're right. When I grew up, I don't think I thought about having $1 million home or whatever. I just thought about having a family. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about none of that other stuff. I thought about having a car. Mm-hmm. Now, people in my community was riding Volvos because, middle-class black folk. But I just thought about having a car. Yeah. And make sure that my family was safe. Like, I didn't know all this stuff is new to me. Like, I don't know that it's different. It sounds surfacey for me, and it sounds transactional. It sounds transactional and surfacey. And I want something that has depth. And I think the only way you do that is by having a conversation that's uncomfortable that will lead to you trusting me more so that we can both achieve something. And that's a spiritual orgasm. Let's make it happen. And that only happens because you trust me.
Hey, speaking of orgasm, great segue.
What? Fred, that was Fred. Yeah, man. That was like a orgasm. Having a face.
Hey, so no, the research, we're talking last week, 4 out of 10 women in the research indicated that they felt pressure to have sex on the first date. And then we had a few folks last week share, Fred actually shared, because I asked Fred, he's been married 30 years, 30 plus years, you and Vicky. I asked Fred, I said, Fred, ask your wife, and also share, is that different than how it was 30 or 40 years ago, where people feeling pressured to have sex on the first date? And Fred's response was actually he thinks it happened more back then. There was more pressure around sex early on than maybe there is pressure now. And so I wanted to ask that question to the ladies, Nisi, Candace, and Court. How big of an influence is sex when dating for a long-term relationship? And notice I added long-term because I'm not thinking about casual dating, right? When you're dating, or in your friend circle, when your friends talk about dating long-term or dating seriously, is sex an influence? Meaning, do you have conversations about should I not, or it's completely off the table, or it's completely on the table?
Jay, I'll step in. Okay, so my perspective of sex is, I mean, I look at things because I grew up in church. I have a strong Christian doctrine. And I know what I would want from a person. Now, we have to couple that with human nature. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's a pressure, or if it's just like, is it a realization that we as humans, we're sexual beings. That's what we're on this earth to do. Be fruitful and multiply. From my Christian nature, I would like to abstain. Because I feel like we were instructed to wait for reasons that we didn't know. We didn't know. If we all had followed, the discipline that was laid out for us, we wouldn't have STDs, we wouldn't have single mothers, we wouldn't have abortion. All of these things are predicated because we're out here having sex. If we were all virgins, we met our spouses, well, then I couldn't get an STD because you've not done anything and I've not done anything. If we're going to bring a child in the world, we're going to bring a child in the world together as a family unit. So I take those things into consideration. But like I said, also at the same time, my humanity kicks in and I'm like, is that a realistic expectation? Like, if I meet someone, how long do I feel like I need to mature the relationship until we either are engaged and about to be married, or are married, or we're still talking? And how
What's
long?
That magic number?
What's that person?
What's that magic number?
Huh?
What's that magic number? I think Steve Harvey said 90 days.
I was gonna say.
Right. What's the magic number?
He said 90.
Is it 90 days? Right.
Yeah, that's Steve Harvey. Yeah, Steve Harvey said 90 days. I'm just curious from you. What's the magic number? Because I love the analogy between the Christian and the humanistic side, right? And so when you face reality, what is the number?
I wished I knew. And I don't know if there is one. I don't know. Maybe y'all just both join hands and y'all get on y'all knees and y'all pray and say, Lord, please take this cup from me.
You ain't joining hands, you joining messes.
But I'm just saying, maybe, is it you and another person and you both are striving for abstinence and you're really like, we really want to, partake in this together? Or is it one person's like, I want abstinence and I'm, I got needs, girl. So that's where the conflict comes into play. And I'm not gonna lie, for me, that is a dating hesitant, because I'm like, I just don't know if I want to cross that threshold with somebody. So I just don't.
I like that term, dating hesitance. I like that term.
Yeah.
When you prioritize sex in a matter of days, can you help me understand that? 90 days, 45 days, whatever. to prioritize something as intimate and as important as an act of sexual intercourse, or with somebody. I guess, and I can't speak for you ladies, but please help me understand. I would hope that more would go into it than just a matter of, a countdown. You know what I mean? Like it's day 75, it's day 77, it's day 78. I can't wait to day 90 so I can rock his world. You know what I mean? Go ahead and just duct tape and honey out. But I'm just saying, if you're interested in having, like Jay said, this is about ultimately having some type of a sustainable, serious, lasting relationship with someone. So it's not like you're gonna lay it on them in a number of days. This you have to vet this person. Otherwise, right? A whole lot of other stuff has to go on before you do something like this that you hope. You have to figure out what this guy's just trying to get past 90 days, his 90-day probationary period, so you can get them draws, and then
he's out.
Help me understand. Please.
So for me, some may say this is a game, but what I have done is tell guys that I'm not having sex with someone who I'm not in a relationship with. And some guys have disappeared, and it's like, okay, so that's what you really wanted.
Good. Yeah.
So you have to kind of feel out that person first. If it's going to be a short-term thing or long-term, you really have to get to know that person, because if not, sex equals feelings that we may not want to have for that person, or create these feelings that shouldn't be there for this person that you don't want to have a long-term feeling with. So then we get confused about, is this really love I'm feeling? Is it lust? Is it just the sex? And then you start talking to this person, and then they don't have anything going on up here, or there's nothing in here, but you're caught up because of sex and your feeling.
And you can end up stuck in a relationship that you might not be in, because you've had more of a spiritual and emotional encounter with someone way too soon to lead to other things. And that's the interesting thing to me about, like what Nisi was talking about, how a whole lot of negative things can come from premature sexual encounters. Not just STDs and unwanted pregnancies and abortions and things like that, but there are a lot of things, and Jay knows one of my favorite words is insidious. There are things that are not necessarily expected or not thought to be negative, which may be unwanted marriages, unwanted divorces, premature divorces, kids in marriages who are suffering through unhappy marriages because you had sex prematurely and thought you were in love, but rather were in lust, and ended up married to somebody, or unable to break the tie with someone because you were spiritually and emotionally bonded to someone through an intimate act, right? That should not have happened for another 60 days, if you want to try to quantify it in days. You know what I mean? You maybe should have given yourself another 30 days or remediated this homeboy, after his probationary period, just to find out if he was the one, if you really wanted to extend yourself in this way. There's a whole lot going on. I was reading some research earlier, and it turns out that 95% of people, and I'm sure this includes God-loving, Christian people, have had sex before marriage. You know what I mean? Not me. I was a virgin when I got married.
You're right.
Why is everybody laughing? But
because your eyes told on
I just found out about duct tape last week. but it turns out that like 5% of the people who tend to who limit their sexual partner to their husband, this is about women, or have very minimal sexual partners, end up having divorces, like have less divorces within the first 5 years of marriage than those who have divorced. Like 20% of people get divorced within the first year of marriage. And of those, they're of the 95% who have sex with multiple partners. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on as a result of taking sex lightly. Yes, sir.
I think one of the things that we forget is sex produces a hormonal response. and it's oxytocin and dopamine. So it's not really about you're in love and what lust is. It is a hormonal response. That's it. That's what lust is. So the irony is, I think, is you kind of want to wait for those hormones to dissipate before you engage in a sexual relationship with that person. You know what I mean? Like when those things calm down is when you really get to see who this person is. I may be in love with you for that first 90 days, 60 days, 30 days. But once that calms down, if you can be my friend and we can have a conversation that's not about us, something outside of us, then maybe we could probably make something more happen. But a lot of people mistake that stability stage as a lack of excitement in the relationship. This person's too stable. Really, what it is the hormonal response has changed.
I mean, that's how you're gonna spend most of your life with this person in a stable, steady state, right? But listen, obviously, you're talking to three very remarkable young men, and you're not gonna find specimens like this.
Where it was going. Hey, Court, I heard Nisi and Candace talk about the hesitancy, in regards to sex, and for the right reasons, for them, and then other women have reasons as to why they hesitate. And I want to just kind of shift the question. It's still along the same lines, though. Court, can you find what you desire in a man by removing sex from the equation? So that whole notion of like, well, I don't know what I have until I test drive it. I don't know what kind of car it is, right? If you remove that altogether off the table, the 95% that Fred is talking about that engage in sex and relationships, do you think that you can still find what you desire in that particular man?
Well, are you saying if you already have engaged in, or when you first meet somebody, you take that off the table altogether? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You first meet each other, you're like, yo, I'm taking this off the table. I'm curious, do you even get a chance to really know that person and know what you're getting yourself into if you remove that completely?
I think you absolutely do. Because I personally am not one that has jumped into a lot of sexual intimate relationships right away. I personally feel like I need to know who you are. Like kind of like what Candace said, I don't sleep with people I'm not in a relationship with. So I need to know who you are and what you're about. And if you are only looking for the intimate piece of it, I'm not your girl. So if you out or you're not engaging in conversation, or you're not giving me the opportunity to get to know you, and you're not really trying to get to know more about me, sex would that would have never even came across the table. So yeah, I absolutely think that if that is taken out the equation and you just strictly get to know somebody, and that goes back to courting, right? Courting wasn't having sex. Courting was getting to know each other. And maybe that's just the old fashioned in me, but I prefer to get to know you a little bit because, and we were talking about, this is kind of a side note, but we were talking about this just this weekend. Remember when your grandparents or your parents used to be like, you bring your friends over, girls or boys, they'd be like, who are your people? There's a reason they're asking you who are your people, because they don't want you out here sleeping with your cousins, so, and the way people are so free, there's a lot of children out here who don't know who their parents are or their siblings are. And you may get to know somebody before you have sex with your brother.
Right, who you never met.
I don't know if this ages me too much, but I remember at the skating rink and meeting somebody at the skating. I remember meeting somebody at the skating rink. And that was courting somebody, and because in the middle of the skating rink, you could slow dance. And it was on and popping in the middle of it, but that was still courting somebody.
Right.
And you got to know them. You got to see if they was jealous or not. All that good stuff came out in that moment.
Absolutely. My boyfriend and I were watching a movie over the weekend, and it was a blind date, and they met at the movies. And he said, how do you do your first date at the movies? He's like, especially a blind date. So you don't know nothing about this person. Y'all ain't gonna have no time to talk. So I found, it was funny that he said that. He's like, why do you go to the movies for your first date? Because you ain't talking. You don't want to talk. Or I guess in some regards, it can be an icebreaker to just kind of be in each other's space to see, because you don't have to talk. But ideally you want to get to know who you're dealing with.
Right on.
Especially if you're thinking, talking about a long-term relationship.
Long
Because
term.
how are you gonna know that you can be with this person forever till the end if you don't have, similar interests?
Right.
Because
Right.
when you have that intimacy at first, it removes that part. And then 6 months down the road, you don't like the same things I like. So how are we going to build this bond, this friendship, if we're not on the same path? You have to get to know this person.
And from the perspective of from the perspective of long-term relationships, there's going to be some times where you don't want to be intimate, or you don't even be around me. I don't want you to touch me. I don't want to see, but it don't mean I don't love you. So what do you do during those periods? Are you going to be able to sustain your relationship when that sex or the intimacy isn't there? If you don't even like talking to each other, you have nothing in common. What else are you building that relationship on?
And then that's where infidelity comes in.
Absolutely.
Right on.
Absolutely.
And that's why the intimacy needs to be friendship and trust and commitment from the very beginning, and develop that friendship piece, and then everything else is gonna flow.
Yep.
Because if I can trust you, then I can, our rhythm of our relationship is going to be definitely spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, friendships, and then the thought of having hard conversations. Because I think that even in friendships, Eric, we still don't talk about sex as friends. And if we do talk about sex, then it's almost like, well, now that we talked about it, are we about to get busy? Right? So, right? No, seriously. So if we have a conversation about it, then the thought is, well, what's next? Not if we have a conversation about it, I really still want to get to know you as a person.
Right.
Because what if you ask the person, and I've met women over the years who are married and they would consider themselves asexual. Right? But they're married. They have no desire for physical intercourse. Doesn't mean that they don't hug and kiss and cuddle. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual act, intercourse. They don't have a desire for that. And for them, it's more of a duty and obligation to their mate. So if we're talking about having real conversations, you may find that somebody you're super compatible with, this is my homie, like we best friends, we talk about everything. And then you find out after you say I do because you wanted to abstain that they're not even really down with sex anyway.
Yeah.
Rough.
Right. And so here's the other piece of it too. And I think this is where some people get a little nervous probably. Everyone's sex drive isn't the same.
Right.
Some people have, they can have sex once a month and be happy. And then you end up in this great relationship otherwise with somebody, right? And then you find out, oh, you only like to have sex once a month. Well, that's a problem, So, but if you have, so that's where it becomes, where's the depth? Like, what becomes your deal breaker? Is that now a problem where you like, well, that don't work for me, so I'm out? Or do you weigh the odds and say, okay, well, we have a great relationship. I can trust this person. I feel safe with this person, et cetera, et cetera. Am I willing to not only stay, but stay faithful?
Right. That's key. Court, you make a great point. I think that women have navigated those terrains much better than we as men. I think that when women enter relationships and they realize, now here's a real thing. When a man gets over 30, his testosterone level starts to, dwindle. By the time he's 40, 45, 50, he might be taking Cialis, he might be taking something to, to keep his stamina, right? And so if a woman is already thinking, well, how we were in our 30s, now you've changed, now I'm out. Most women don't think like that. They think this is my relationship, this is my partner, this is my boo. We're gonna ride this thing out and figure this thing out one way or the other. But I think men think differently. I think we're like, you know what?
You're gone.
I mean, sadly, right? Sadly, we think differently, and I think that those influences as to why men think differently about that have come from either how we were raised, right? You raised on a block and all you see is pimps. You raised in a home where it's nothing but men, and you see how they treat women, or your college friends, or social media, what have you. Again, I can think of 1,001 excuses, but I think that's where we oftentimes don't see eye to eye. When things in a relationship start to change, according to your point about maybe sex may dwindle, men are thinking, well, damn, I need to get fulfilled somewhere else. And a woman is like, man, with you, my ride or die. So we just gonna figure this thing out together.
See, I think that's why the important thing is that these things are only discoverable through abstinence, right? You can't find this out if you're having sex with somebody immediately and then all of a sudden it stops. All of a sudden, say I don't know, something happens and you're not able to have sex, or I have no idea, but for whatever reason, this guy's like, oh, it ain't happening for me anymore. These things are discoverable through abstinence and through, like Murph said, talking about it, finding out who you're with, not letting somebody have a taste, have a sample. You know what I mean? This ain't
And that's true.
court where you can like poke a sausage and hand it to somebody as they pass by, and let them try to figure out whether or not they like it or not. You don't know if they're faithful to you, if they're committed to you, unless they're committed to going through the tough times. And those tough times need to start probably more immediately than later. And tough times may just having shown some damn self-control, right?
Right.
This woman wants a relationship with me, not a relationship with my penis, right? Not off the bat, okay? So if I value her, if I think that there's something worth it, I want to impress her, right? I think there's value in her. I think that I want to have a long-term committed relationship to her, and I'm willing to stick with this for as long as she's willing, as long as it takes her to figure out that I'm the one. That's how much I value her. And that's what women, to me, should be looking for, is somebody who values you enough that they're willing to wait. Now,
hey, so Fred, you call that value, and I want to take your words because you used that last couple of weeks. High value man. You've been watching Kevin Samuels.
I hate that word. I hate
that's why I'm using it tonight. We talk about high value. And so, the question is, when you think of a high value man, Candace, Nisi, and Courtney, is sex part of the criteria for your circle? You don't have to talk about yourself, but we're curious in knowing, like, what happens when y'all go out to get y'all's nails done, or y'all have, girl weekends and girls trips. Like, is sex part of that criteria to be a high value man? And if not, we're curious, what are those things that makes him a high value man? Because I think that men oftentimes get it twisted. We may think that if we're exceptional in areas A, B, and C, then we're high value. But y'all could be looking at it differently. Y'all might say, nah, that don't even matter to me, but be exceptional in these areas over here, right? So talk about that, Niece, Candace, and Courtney. What your idea or your social circle idea of what a high value man is, and if sex is part of that criteria.
Courtney.
Well, I would say
you gotta be able to put it down.
That is very helpful. It is desired, right? Everybody, I mean, not everybody, because like I said, everybody's thing is different. Right. But most people want to feel wanted, and then they also want intimacy, right? On some level or another. So yes, it is a part of it. Absolutely. Is it the biggest part of it? No. Because first and foremost, I think if you talk to most women, especially, I don't know everybody else's age, but I'll speak for myself. At 45, we are like, okay, are you honest? Are you going to be here? Are you reliable? Are you not a bum? Are you going to go to work every day? Are you, so those are the things that are important for us. It's not what you're driving, where you living. Do you not live with your parents? Do you, and even if you do live with your parents, why do you live with your parents? Are you taking care of your parents? Because that's a good value too, so it's a lot more into it. Like, what are your family values? Are you introducing me to everybody as your friend, but we've been together 4 years, so there's a lot more that goes into it, than sex and intimacy. Yes, that's absolutely a part of it, because like I said, most people have a desire to feel wanted, right? And then kind of to go back to something somebody said a little bit earlier, when it's, say for instance, you are in this long-term relationship and then it goes away or it wanes, then the questions become, well, why did it wane? Because, you hear when you're growing up, well, if they ain't getting it at home, they're getting it somewhere, right? But we've learned that maybe they're not, now that we know, it's like, so are you not attracted to me anymore? Is there a situation in our relationship, or is it just life and you trust and you aren't interested, right? So you really have to know people and have that communication. And so that's a big piece of it. Are you able to communicate? Because if we can't talk and we don't know what, I have to play Jedi mind tricks trying to find out what's going on with you, that only adds to the stress of the relationship. So, and who wants to go through all that 24 hours a day, you know? So communication is huge as well.
Right.
You know,
I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
Whenever I hear that guy, Kevin Samuels, say high value man, he always makes it seem as though it's just a superficial high value man.
Yeah.
It's never the other qualities that we're looking for, because I've come to realize that a lot of the women who are younger than us, that's what they identify as being a high value man. They're not searching for the things as Courtney just said, you know? So they make it seem as though the outside is more of a high value and the sex part compared to what you really need from a person. Because that stuff doesn't matter if you don't have the other aspects in that relationship.
Name some of those things, Candace. Courtney mentioned a few. Name a few things that you consider to be high value, because I agree. He mentions those superficial things. What are some of the integral, more characteristic things that you think is high value?
For me, I look for someone who is a family guy, because I like being around my family. I like spending time, with my friends. So somebody who has a great relationship with his family, with his friends, because if you're with someone who has no friends or there's always drama, I don't want that in my circle.
Right.
Because my family and friends, we don't have that in our circle. So I don't want to bring that element into that. Someone who puts me not first, because of course God is first, but just puts me first as far as my feelings, my emotions, my mental. If I'm having a bad day, I can come to you and have a discussion and just and listen and not insert yourself into what I'm saying. For me, it's also someone I can have fun with. I like to go hiking, things like that. So I look for more of the longer lasting parts of a relationship than just again, superficial, because those things don't last. Because if he loses the sex part or the financial part, then what do you have? Are you going to leave?
Right.
Yep.
We got about 5 minutes left. Niece, the same question, but I wanted to give you a part two, because you and I went to school together. We have a lot of mutual friends. You have a lot of guy friends, and I'm curious to know why you think. Part two of this question for you, Niece, is why men place such a high value on sex. Why you think men place such a high value on, if I can knock it down in the bedroom, then that's equivalent to being gainfully employed, what I'm saying, having 401k, 3-4 vacations a year, right? I think we oftentimes as men get just off with that, right?
I think because men think that that's ultimately what a woman wants, is that we want to have our backs blown out. And no, sometimes that hurts, like physically speaking. No.
I'm dead.
And society, societal norms have placed such a high value on I have a big penis and I can, and it's like, no, that's not what's important. As Courtney said, hey, it is integral that you all have a mutually symbiotic sexual relationship. Now, whatever that is, it could just be touching. Women crave different things.
Mm-hmm.
So some women just want a cuddle. They just, not just want a cuddle, but they can feel that intimacy through a cuddle. They can feel that intimacy through a forehead kiss. Let's go cliche digs here. You know what I mean? There's different levels of intimacy, and it's not about I brought the pain, because sometimes you can bring the pain, and that is hurt. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, back up, bro. But I need you to take 5 steps back. So that's not what it is, and I think when women and men can at least come to an agreement to say, these are the things that are important to me, and then the man says, these are the things that are important to me, maybe they aren't the same, but maybe you all can work towards, having a mutual understanding of what's important to me. It may not be, you may not understand why it's important to me, but respect why it's important to me. Maybe I laugh at my mother. My mother gets her hair done religiously. Like, she is gonna get that hair done, and I'll be like, Mom, why do you care? Like, that's just her thing, though. So over the years, I've just come to, okay, that's her thing. And I respect it, even though I don't quite understand it. I respect it, So I think that has to happen between men and women. And for a man, maybe he is proud of his sexual prowess, and it's like, okay, baby, thank you, I appreciate that. But like Courtney, I'm sorry, like Courtney said, there's some other things we can do. Can we go hang out with your friends? Like, I want to see your interaction with other people, not even just me, because you could be crazy about me, but when you walk out that house, you could just be crazy, and that's a no. Like, don't bring no crazy, So it's not that sexual component for women. As I think as we get older, it's not as important, because we've come to kind of like know and value other things. I think we tend to start to know our bodies more. A simple touch on the shoulder could be like, I love it when he touches me on my, or he brushes the side of my feet. Different things, or he plays in my hair. It's not just gonna be like, oh, grope me, touch me, kiss me, lick me. It's like
gotta be some of that now. It's gotta be some touching and licking and groping.
You don't like all that stuff, right?
But Jason, here's one thing also. I feel like some men, that's all they have to bring to the table.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all they have.
They have to show that first, because that's their strongest strength. That's their strongest ability.
No, even worse. They think that's their strongest. You know what I mean? That's what they're doing. They think that they, it's like digging a hole in sand, and the sand is just falling back in the hole. And like you said, that's painful, and that's all ego, and they think that they've been watching too much porn. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, Candace. And as Murph and Fred and I kind of close out, we just appreciate Niecy, Candace, and Courtney being part of the show today. But I think that that's a great point to kind of end on. Is I think men think that that's a top criteria, because that's what we've told each other. Niecy, going back to what you just said about having a conversation with women about what they desire, we haven't been taught to do that. And so how we measure up success with a woman or success in a relationship is, how am I laying it out where you know what I'm saying, you speaking in tongues, or you drooling outside of your mouth, or I put you in a coma, right? So we have had those locker room conversations with each other about that's what it's going to be. And if I didn't put you in a coma, then the next night I get a chance to do it again, right? I'm gonna keep trying until I do. But I think the three of you raised a great point, and that's having conversation with women about what you want. And so, Murph and Fred, as we close out, I don't know if y'all's stories is very similar, but in my days at WVU, and Murph, you were there, you were at Fairmont, then you came to WVU later, and Niecy was there. In my days in college, like that's what was taught, right? It was taught that, and it wasn't until I had met some, great friends. I mean, Niecy, we've been on each other almost 20 years, and Courtney almost 10. The two of you, I've learned some stuff from y'all that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that women thought like that, because the rhetoric and the locker room talk, Murph, you played football, has always been, let me put you in a coma. And you're going to, and as long as I'm your number one in that book, then I'll always be number one.
The worst thing you can do is listen to guys when it comes to women. That's
but you know what, though? I think that the worst thing. But I think it's an illusion. I think that most men really want to be intimate with a woman. That's scary, and it takes work. The easiest thing to have is sexual response. If I look at you and I get an erection, that's easy. But if I look at you and I tell you that I think you're beautiful and you're interesting, and I want to get to know you, and I want to know all this other stuff, because I really do want to know that, I'm just afraid to be that guy. And a lot of times because we haven't seen that guy.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I think that would be strong, but I think it might be some punk shit. I don't
No,
know.
exactly. Sensitivity punk.
Yeah. But I don't want to seem feminine. But I'm really interested in how she smells right now because she smells real pretty, and I would like to know what is that. But then I don't want her to be like, "Oh, he on some punk stuff." No, I'm interested in you, and I think that it's hard for people to differentiate between running game and really just having a conversation because you don't have to run game if you have a real conversation of interest.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a great point. That should be your next topic. It should be an all men session.
No.
Tell them.
That'll ruin everything.
But you know what?
It is not being a punk to
Well,
try
for
to
real,
get to know somebody.
Hey, when I was doing sex therapy though, because I was a sex therapist for like 3 years, so it was crazy when you talk to people about really what's important in a relationship, and the dude would always say, I need to figure out a way to help her to be happy. I really want to support her happiness. And he would think it would be about the physicality, but when I would talk to her, she would say, I really don't know how to be. And they was talking the same thing, but they did not know it. Like, I want to talk to you. I want to be your friend. I want to feel safe with you. If I trust you, I will have an orgasm. Like, those things are all in play.
That's a show in itself. If I trust you, I'll have an orgasm. No, seriously.
No, he's on to something though. We had a conversation with some friends this weekend, and one of the gentlemen was saying, he said, what I have learned in the process of his marriage is that the more I love her and give her, he was like, I don't have to ask for anything because she's going to just overflow me with more than what I ever even thought I needed. So all you got to do is love her and, gain that relationship, that trust, and you don't have to ask for anything.
You know what I
Freely
learned?
given.
You know what I learned? If my wife sees me washing the dishes with my sleeves rolled up, it's on.
Yeah, clean the kitchen. Help around this house.
Mr. Clean out there. Cleaning with duct tape in your hand.
Roll up the sleeves, get some suds, put some suds on the ball spot right there. Some palm out. Put some palm out right here.
We go to jet here in a few seconds, but I'm just grateful the way that you ladies ended the show, because I think that is room for us to have more discussion as men. We may have an all guy panel on, and I think Murph, when he talked about it's not no punk stuff to be sensitive and to be emotional, but that's not what we're taught. You know what I mean? And so now it's how do we get enough guys to believe that what you've been taught was wrong? Because you women have been telling us that you can be sensitive, but we're like, I don't know about that, right? And so I think it really does take another man to really tell another man, like, look, like the ways it's not been working out for you. So that if you want to change the game, it's not about how can you run game, right? How can you really connect with a woman in a way that you've never done before? That's the real game.
Yeah.
But Jason, also, as Murph said, that when it's the woman, it's us. Because when the men do approach us like that, we be like, oh, you soft. I don't want no soft guy. So it's not even just y'all, it's the women.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
I'm gonna say those are the wrong women. I mean, like, you know
They
what I mean?
understood.
Those are the immature, because I could definitely kind of see myself in my head at some point when I was younger, like, he's soft, like, because first of all, I'm thinking I'm hard, so you got to be harder than me. So I'm like, okay, but as we mature, hopefully those layers fall away. And I think it's important for us as women. Say we encounter a guy, and like Jason said, he's kind of trying to, he's all about his sex game, and I can do this, and I know I do this well, and blah blah. You have to sit him down and say, look, babe, let me tell you something. I don't need all that. I just need you to chill and be you. And if we help them break down those, barriers, then perhaps they become more comfortable with just being them, and it's not about let me bring the pal, it's really about what do you want, how can I please you, and what does your body need.
Yeah.
And we don't put them on, we don't make them feel like you got to go out here and be, super sex guy with the S on your chest.
Right, some porn star, right. The guys should be reassured by that, to tell the truth.
Right.
You would think.
And that's true. Nisi brought up a really good point, and I'm not going to prolong the show or anything, but one thing you did say is I remember having a conversation with somebody several years ago, and he said he remembered being at a club talking to a young lady, and he was like, you should let me take you out to dinner sometime, have some drinks. And she's like, well, why can't you buy me a drink right now at this bar? Like he was like, well, if that's all it takes is to buy you a drink at the bar versus me taking you out to a nice dinner and that includes drinks, the conversation, then yeah, he said, so when you meet women who want more, he said sometimes it's like, it's kind of easy over there because they've gotten so used to being able to go for the easy ones that they don't want or need to put the effort in until maybe they're 40. And then they say, okay, I can drink at the bar. Now I want to take somebody to dinner. Well, so it's a balance. It's a little bit.
I think there's a big, but I think for a lot of men, they don't want to tell the truth and say that there's a difference between dating somebody and finding somebody to masturbate with. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm at the club, the truth. I'm really just finding somebody to help me to relieve this stress, and hopefully they want to have the same release. But that's different than wanting someone to court. That's different to go for the long game with someone. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times we're not willing to even acknowledge that. And that maybe I'm accepting someone who really wants a short game, but I'm looking for somebody for the long game. And that comes about I think that comes from that unclear expectation.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can have a clear expectation with you, Courtney, right, and get that from a loving position, and you feel comfortable, like I'm a comforter, you know what I'm saying, like a warm blanket, then you're gonna probably buy into what I'm giving, because I'm giving you me. A lot of dudes are afraid to do that because they think they need to know who they are, and you really don't. You got to be trying to figure that out. That's the journey.
That's true. Yep.
We're gonna do that next week. I think Court gave us a great idea, man. I want to bring a lot more guys on. Let's just get 10 of us on here next week, man, and just really talk openly about like why we approach relationships from the standpoint on let me get you in the bed after the first night or the first week, like the psyche behind that, because there's a root to why we make every decision that we make. It ain't just because, I just felt good that night. No, there's a reason why we made that decision. Why are we going after you the first night, the first week? I'm curious, Murph. I mean, to your point, like, is it because we want to be heard, right? And we want to be understood, listened to. But the way that we are heard, understood, and listened to is through physical intimacy. We haven't found no other way, right?
No, wait. That's not necessarily, no.
You've been out the dating game.
You know, a lot has been said here, and a lot of it is true about men and their immaturity. A lot of guys don't grow up until they're 45, 50 damn years old. All right. So trying to be understood is not their top priority. Trying to get laid is still their top priority. Right. So we need to talk, Jason, me and you before we have these guys on.
Guys, man.
I think it would be an interesting discussion, but especially among guys like us, all right? I think,
and guys who the lady said at the age number 40, like I'm looking like 40 plus. I want to hear from those dudes, right? Not 25 and 30. We all know what it is at 25 and 30, but men who are 40 plus, like the way you approach a woman, if you're only wanting intimacy, sexual intimacy, like what is in your mind? Like, are you not thinking long game, as Murph mentioned? Maybe you think short game.
No, of course. Right. Yeah. I mean, look, guys, there's women out there, and women know this. I mean, I hope fathers and mothers are talking to their daughters and telling them that in a lot of circumstances, you are prey, right? And then there are predators out there, and they are of the male species, right? Yeah. You got to decide what you're going to be. You're going to be prey, or you're going to be a competitor out there among people who are looking to prey upon you, right? So guys will tell you anything, right? They'll tell your daughter or your whatever just to get what they want. There are guys who are looking for long-term relationships. At 18, 19 years old, I had my perspective adjusted to me, and I don't want to prolong the show either, but my father had the sex talk with me right before I went to college. My mom came outside while he was working on, I'll try to be quick, while he was working on a lawnmower and said, you got to talk with him. I was 18 going to college. And he said, what talk? I'm like, oh, Lord Jesus. And he said, son, and I'll clean it up. He said the P word. He said, vagina ain't nothing but a hole. And I walked away like, what ain't nothing but a hole? Ain't nothing but a hole, right? Okay. But it gave me a perspective. And I mentioned that because Murph said, are you looking for somebody to just masturbate with? We're talking about just having orgasms. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, in college or when you're 18, 19, 20, 30 years old, it's like having an orgasm and finding some kind of a creative way to get somebody out of your apartment or your room, or dorm room, or your hotel or whatever, right? That's what it comes down to, right? Are you going to be that woman? Or are you going to be the woman for whom a guy is looking for a sustained, a long-term relationship with? You got to figure out how you fit into this animal kingdom, right? What are you going to be, right? Because guys know what they're looking for. They're looking for easy prey. The guys ain't looking for some woman with horns on her head. You know, they're not looking for the healthiest animal. They're looking for the weak. They're looking for the psychologically damaged. They're looking for the least loved. They're looking for somebody who doesn't know what's looking for them. They're looking for somebody who needs attention. They're looking for the lame. They're looking for that little newborn calf, the little just born giraffe thing. You know what I'm saying?
Not all guys. You're talking about young guys, right, Fred?
Yeah.
Oh, this 45-year-old dudes do the same thing.
There's some old ones that are still
with money and resources. They're doing the same things, man. So come on, man. So when we have this discussion, this is what we're going to be talking about. I mean, we just can't,
Let's do it.
Jay, before we go, but I'm gonna throw something out there, guys. So I have a 19-year-old, very great young man, sweet, respectable. But let me tell you, I tell him all the time, if I even sense you are messing over a girl, I'm gonna stomp a hole in you. Like I don't play that because I've been hurt. I don't want to see him perpetuate that behavior. So sometimes these dudes, mamas know what these dudes are doing, and they just stand by like their sons are the greatest. And it's like, ma'am, your son is a whole problem. And you just down here, oh, baby. And, oh. No, you need to get him together. So that is what I tell my son all the time. If you're dating, fine. But if you claim to have a young lady and you're going to start mistreating her, I'm going to mistreat you. We're going to meet each other outside in the parking lot. And I'm going to take my earrings out.
Put the Vaseline on.
I'm not gonna breed that behavior. I'm not. So I'm just throwing that out there.
But it's true. I mean, think about how many times you could see or hear about the family reunion. Everybody know the wife, mistress, the girlfriend, and the side chick. Like the family entertaining all of them. So that's
like Medea's family reunion.
But you know what? I think, so my son turns 13 tomorrow, and I'm excited about it. He went on a little date today. But I think that one of the things I'm going to do with him is have a rite of passage conversation with him about what it is to be 13 and what it is to be a teenager and a young man of color. But I think one of the things that, Nisa, what you said, I think for me as a father, trying to bring a young man into this world to be this dude, my job is not to be like, for me, this is just my perspective. I don't want to warn him about messing over a woman. I want to talk to him about what is his goal with that woman and how is he trying to achieve that? What's the verb? And keep it 100 with me, because then it's going to uncover some things about integrity and character. So I ain't gotta go. I'm not trying to go in on him as much as I'm trying to have him go inward. You know what I'm saying? So he can understand what it is to have character, what it is to have integrity. You can't be hooking up with that girl if you know that girl want more from you than just your penis. That ain't cool.
Yep.
You feel me? So I just want to say, I think that the other perspective is having resource. What is within you? What do you really want? What is your goal here? And sometimes it is recreation. Then what is recreation for you? Is it using somebody? What is recreation? And you can still have a meaningful dialogue about that. But people seem to be afraid of that a lot of times because it will uncover your irrational belief. And typically it comes from trauma. You know what I'm saying? What we ain't seen. That's why sex is so weird for everybody. Sorry.
I agree. I agree, but sometimes you gotta resort to a, knuckle up. Come on, let's. Jason, now me and Jason, you see, me and Jason had a little spout behind a building one time, and Jason don't like to admit it, but Jason was fighting me like a dude, y'all.
You beat his ass too, didn't you?
It was for play. It was for play.
Got hands. Lisa got hands. Yeah, she got hands. She nice with it. She nice with it.
We've been through everything. We were playing around, but
just like Harlem Shuffle.
Yes.
Now we gonna fight fair. Now oh my God. Jason.
Hey, ladies, it was a great show. I do appreciate all of you being on. I mean, my goodness, just the insight. This is why I love breaking it up. We always do the guys' perspective, and then we'll always throw in an episode or two in the series where we bring women on. And then the guys will get off and be like, yo, do you remember what Courtney said? Damn, Candace says, Nisi said, damn, we got to talk about that next week. So it really does help us to really kind of engineer the way that we have these type of discussions. So we just appreciate just y'all being on. Sorry to keep y'all long. I mean, we usually go an hour, but damn, the conversation. Anytime you talk about sex, the conversation go all night. Look at that dog next week, bro. That dog has been going off all show, bro.
That's somebody else. God, is somebody else's dog for a change.
Is that Murph's dog?
Yeah, I think
I
know it now, but it wasn't at first. It wasn't at first. Don't be trying to put that on me. Somebody can't.
No, it wasn't my dog. Both of our dogs came into the studio here.
Hey, Fred, between you and Murph, y'all both got dogs.
Security, home security.
Like what me?
Hey, for those who are still listening by web, there's a few websites we're on, YouTube, 2 Facebook pages. Thank you for joining. All of your comments are great. We appreciate the emails we get throughout the week. We definitely try to bring in some of your questions. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We'll see you all next Tuesday, same time, 7:30 Eastern. Back in this same series, The Unspoken Truth on Why You Are Single from a Man's Perspective. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Nisi. Appreciate y'all.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.